Hello, wonderful people. So, this workshop is part one in a series of materials that I prepared for our Discord challenge. Namely, whenever I was offering mentorships and programs, educational programs for writers and narrative designers, I always wanted to, at the end of a program, offer them my students some gig or some opportunity. And before the industry went to crap, I was able to do that by mostly having a deal with studios and publishers or some platforms to kind of at least offer chance for my students to earn some money, if not get jobs outright. Now, the situation in the industry has vastly changed and it's horrible out there, as many of you know. So I was really happy to have the chance to extend this invitation for this challenge. We're partnered with Twist Tales, which is a German company who's dealing with publishing and producing audio games, and they're gaining some nice traction, and it's a good opportunity to write a game, publish a game, and hopefully get some income. Now, because they wanted to do a self-publishing thing for their platform where they open their engine, which is really cool, you'll see, very similar to Twine if you have experience with Twine. If not, it's like quite simple. And basically they invite writers to kind of make their own audio games. Now, the challenge is in the fact that we're gonna be doing a like extended game jam kind of thing, where you have opportunity to learn how to write and game design for audio games, and the games I recommend are gonna be published by them. So there's no like first place, second place. There's no like limit in how many games qualify, as long as they adhere to their standards. And basically all you need to know is in these two workshops, this is workshop number one, writing for audio games. Workshop number two will be crafting choices, which is a main game design element for audio games. And whatever is explained in these two workshops is going to help you generally with nonlinear branching narratives, and they, aside from being what Twist Tales want to see, is what I firmly believe a good interactive storytelling should be about. Also, the third part of the material is going to be their own tutorial on how to use a Twist Tales engine. So you're going to have all of this in a package and linked and posted on a Discord server, so you can check it out and hopefully join us in this challenge. So, writing for audio games and immersive storytelling. This program is designed like a self-paced learning with me giving you the best practices, but also giving you some exercises. Feel free to pause the video and do the exercise at your own pace. However, I do think that the whole thing should take you about hour and a half tops. This is an invitation for game writers, narrative designers, but also audio creators and enthusiasts. And it's gonna contain 8 sections. So without further ado, we will learn how to write smooth transitions between scenes, appropriate not only for audio games but for good writing, how to replace facts with emotions to create more engaging narrative, how to use sensory immersion, again very underused tool in narrative design, and how to structure your game for listeners. Section number 1, writing without visuals. The main difference between audio games and other interactive storytelling is that player cannot see, they can only hear. There's no graphics, and it's amazing how much we pick up through visual clues. So your writing cannot rely on graphics, vignettes, or generally even your players seeing the text before their eyes. So writing has to be very on point. It has to carry spatial component to help your players orient themselves, but also emotional components so they can strongly connect with your narrative, continue being immersed, and of course all the other narrative information about characters, plot, and development. Visuals immediately communicate characters' emotion. As you probably know from visual novels, there are different facial expressions or like emotions that character is shown, so you can generally get like the gist of the situation the moment you see characters. Also, a lot can be gleaned from environment, and environmental storytelling is like entire section on its own. But as you know, simply seeing what is your environment immediately saves you time placing story in like time, space, and circumstances. Also, actions are not visible, so they need to be declared, explained in a particular way. And one more challenge is pacing of the story. The visual novels or like visually supported games, they kind of can handle stronger, faster pacing, while in audio games, it's kind of difficult balance. So you cannot draw it, drag it out because of the attention span your audience has and all the challenges and difficulties involving listening. But also, you cannot rush things. You need to give your audience time to process and comprehend what's going on. So, audio writing needs to cover all these challenges, which makes it really a good exercise for writing in general. Section number 2, smooth transitions between narrative segments. Now, in a visual novel or even twine game, the screen changes and you are aware that situation is changed, and then immediately your mind, your brain starts looking for clues. What's different? What changed? In audio games, it's not that simple. So usually, what players need to understand is where is the story moving and like what's going on. And a lot of it can be solved by visuals. So you cannot assume that your player sees or that they can make conclusions and make connections the way they do in visually supported games. So, for example, bad transition is they make their way to the farm and then child looks sicker. Players may not realize the connection between the two immediately. So every abrupt confusion can abrupt writing and abrupt segmenting of the content can confuse your listeners who by hearing a full stop expect new meaning. So they make their way to the farm, child looks sicker. It feels like we don't know how much time elapsed between one full stop and the other. So better version would be when they arrive, the child looks sicker than before. Because now, as you see, it's a simple trick, but it makes your writing more compacted. And it makes it possible to connect segments one with another. Basically, the transition rules are simple. Avoid abrupt time jumps. Add temporal bridges to explain how much time has elapsed. Like, is it a moment? Is it a half hour? And it doesn't have to be exact, but like give us the ability to relate to how much time did elapse. Always use cause and consequence so that we can follow the thread with listening to the story, and think what the listener hears next, because once they hear one thing, they're ready for brand new thing to happen. So if you want to have smoother transitions, you need to connect and cluster together meanings that pertain to the same thing. So now we're going to do a short exercise. Like, you can pause here and let's fix these transitions. The soldiers enter the forest, campfire is already dying. Rewrite it so it flows naturally, and it can be done in a different ways. And because it's quite a straightforward challenge, I challenge you to actually write like at least 5 different transitions and see which ones work the best. Next session, factual versus emotional writing. So factual writing declares the facts and explains things, like he helped on the farm and talked to his mother. These things are not bad in itself, but in the context of audio game, it can leave your players unengaged, because the emotional component, usually communicated to many other tools, not just visuals, is not there. So make sure that always tell us not only what happened, but like what does it mean. So emotional writing, and a better way to write, instead of he helped on the farm and talked to his mother, is like he spends morning on the farm, grateful for the distraction. Now we not only understand what happened, but what does it mean to our character. Basically, the goal is to understand the emotional state, the stakes, the tensions, and character's perspective. So principle here is to write what characters experience, not just what they do, and then you will not have dry, unimmersive writing. So instead of describing actions or just actions, you should add feelings, tension, motivation, implication. Next exercise, very short one. The guard tells them to leave. How would you rewrite this to be not factual but emotional? And again, there are so many solutions, and the invitation here is to write at least 3 or 4 different ways to describe this scene in a more immersive way, and see what works the best. 4. Sensory immersion. Basically, something I call audio first writing. Because you don't have visuals, you have to rely heavily on the audio, which means focus on sound, touch, atmosphere, movement, and space. For example, they enter a large hall. This is not only a factual writing, but it kind of invites us as a player to imagine a large hall, to visualize a large hall. And it's therefore weak, because we don't have support of visual imagination. So a stronger example would be their footsteps echo across the vast hall. Because now the listener is not only immersed, and is not only we appeal to their auditory senses. Also, this stronger example, their footsteps echo, can be supported by a special effect like audio effect, but it also provides more information. Now the listener understands what is the size of the room, how empty it is, and what kind of environment it is. So basically, the practical rule here is to replace whatever visual clues you might be inclined to share with your audience, to replace it with like, how does it sound and how does it feel? For example, dark tunnel. It could be your voice echoes back from the tunnel. So we know it's a foreboding, because what is the meaning of dark tunnel? It's like something scary, dangerous, and foreboding. Instead of like a crowded tavern, we could use voices overlap and mugs slime onto the tables. As you can see here, we're trying to evoke an image. We're trying to picture the image, but in a sentence, a crowded tavern, it's more appealing to our visual sense of imagining a tavern full of people. But if we say voices overlap and mugs slam on the tables, we have this auditory component, which is more immersive, more natural to a player who's already listening in. But also it creates a subtle layer of immersion that's really what makes audio games amazing. So let's convert this visual line, like you see a large river, into an audio first writing. For example, you see a forest clearing. It could be enhanced into like the wind rustles to the trees around you. So we kind of get auditory idea of what's going on in a forest, instead of just picturing trees and underbrush. So let's convert this "you see a large river" into an audio first writing. Pause the video, and again I invite you to offer like several solutions, because this is not such a difficult exercise. Number 5, narrative flow and listener cognition. So with visuals, and I don't mean just illustrations, but like when you have a design, a UI, when you have some graphic elements, be it illustration, portraits, elements of UI, even the text as a part of design. Our brain processes things in certain order, like we're looking for the biggest content of the screen, and then we look for what's on the left side, what's on the top, and then we kind of scan from top, left to bottom, right, looking for what's bigger, what's more prominent, and that's how we, compose the mental image. And if we read, again, we kind of not only look at the very word we are reading at the moment, we're kind of seeing the whole paragraph. We are kind of being patient to comprehend the whole paragraph after we read it. We don't necessarily pick on each word like bird picks each one seed at a time. For audio games, when players are listening, we process information sequentially, which means that we really are present for each word, and we kind of process the meanings immediately, which means that bad writing can easily cause confusion, cognitive overload, and it can outcome with loss of information and confusion, disorientation. So there's a number of best practices to adhere. Let's see this example. The tower stands beside a forest path near the river and a ruined bridge. Like, whoa, so many to unpack. If this was a visual novel or even a regular novel, we kind of see the length of this sentence and we are kind of ready to parse it and comprehend it after we've had, taken in all the words. In audio, we really process the tower, forest, river, and bridge, in sequence. And if there is an overload, like here, where we have to not only imagine each of the elements, but kind of arrange them spatially in our mind's eye, it can cause overload. So one idea at a time. Best practices here is to keep your sentences clear and concise, but as we saw before, connected if there is a connection in meaning. Introduce one idea at a time and feel free to space them out by providing emotional context. So avoid stacking too much information and reinforce our spatial orientation. So how are we to picture, each of the elements? So for example, instead of the old stone tower stands beside a forest path near the river and the ruined bridge, and then we have to process all of that and kind of play mental Tetris to figure it out. A better writing would be a forest path leads to an old stone tower. So we can see path, and then it leads us to old stone tower. And then the next sentence is, beyond it, you hear the river rushing under a broken bridge. So you see, we add another sense. We evoke and immerse player through audio, and then they can picture a river rushing under a broken bridge, and they already have placed, a forest path and a stone tower before. So, another interesting challenge is to design audio game or audio story in segments. So, think about it like narrative blocks, and basically you should also do it with the regular writing. So basically providing your players with exact blocks which could contain context, action, emotional response, and then a transition. So through context we understand what is the scene about. Through action, we understand what is the change, and change is the essence of storytelling. Then, provided emotional response, it doesn't mean to just always overshare what certain character is feeling, but it also means this, as we called it, auditory writing, so evoking emotional response from your player as well, and then craft the transition where you draw your player's attention to decision that they are going to make. So for example, you reach the village square. It's a context, so we are reaching the village square, we are exposed, we are entering the community, and then action. A crowd has gathered around the well. So now we can picture, there is a well, there's a crowd, and something's changing. The village square is not as empty as it seemed in the first sequence. And then emotional implication. No one is speaking. Why is this emotional implication? Because, it's kind of expected for a crowd to be, loud or, unfocused or whatever, but no one is speaking, so no exemptions. Indicates that this crowd is concerned, focused on something, and by no one speaking, we can assume that it's like a tense moment where no one dares, to speak. And then finally there is a transition, and then someone notices you. Why is this a transition? Because now it opens the opportunity for us to ask our players what do they want to do next, how do they want to proceed, staring at this a grim crowd gathered around the well. Okay, so this is how you create easy to follow scenes in audio. So let's have another exercise, this time a little bit bigger, rewriting a scene. So original. They arrive at the village, people are scared, the leader talks to them about a sickness. So let's add a smoother transition, emotional writing, sensory cues, and better pacing, okay? And this one might take you a while, so feel free to pause, think through Go back if you need to hear once more about the sections that I've shared before. And when you're ready, do again few of the have a go at it a few times just to see how all of this is not to limit your creativity, but to invite you to embrace the constraint of audio writing, which is relieved of a very important visual sense, and you'll see how it like vastly improves your writing overall. So again, we are looking for smoother transitions, more easy to follow sequences that are not producing overload. We want to have some emotional writing, like emotional impact and immersion. We want to have sensory cues, which is not relying only on visuals. And we want to have controlled pacing so that our audio player can process all the information and kind of get the picture and be immersed in the scene, so that the transition to what you want to do next feels natural, smooth, and doesn't leave player stumped. Okay, so to wrap it up, some final tips and tricks. Core rules are to basically not think of a story as like paragraphs and fragments, but like scenes which need transition from one scene to the other. And it's not a scene in a typical screenwriting manner, like at one location during one event or interaction. We can have many transitions. Treat these transitions as pieces of content and like pieces of change that move the story forward, having in mind that you might want player to interact at the end of each transition. So prioritize emotional perspective and replace visuals with sensory cues. Be mindful of the pacing and information flow, because sometimes it means you do chop your writing into shorter sentences, but sometimes it means connecting two otherwise too short sentences together. So structure your scenes clearly. To do this properly, you will need to know exactly why are you writing this scene. So I suggest you stick to my blueprint of planning a story. And if you don't know about it, then yeah, just feel free to ask me about it on the Discord. It's a simple method I've developed to enable you quick story planning without too much boxing in, and a framework which leaves you with a lot of creativity but does provide you with some structural guidelines. So structure is super important, and if you have prepared your episodes and your scenes, then you can really focus on the rules of audio game writing and not get lost in like trying to do too many things at once. So how to test if this is good writing or not? Well, simply, if the player closes their eyes, can they still understand the scene? If the answer is yes, then congratulations, your writing works. Alright guys, that was all for this workshop, and it might not seem as much, and really once you get into the flow of it, it's not that difficult, it's not that hard. Again, I invite you to think about the theme and plot first. Characters, what is the minimal number of characters you should use? I invite you to plan your episodes and your scenes, and then maybe listen to the next workshop video where we'll do the game design and options and branching design, and then you can come back and create smooth, immersive, sequential writing for audio games. Thank you, and see you in the next one.